Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Zone to Speak podcast. I'm your host, Juliana. Before the episode, I have got to share one of my absolute favorite ride essentials, the Cyc Plus Smart Pump. This little thing goes everywhere with me. It's compact, powerful, and honestly a game changer on the bike. I love using it mid-ride when switching between terrains. I can drop the pressure for gravel and then pump it back up when I hit the road. Super easy, super fast. And of course, it's a total lifesaver in case of a flat or any loss of air. No stress, no hand pumping. Just press the button and go. You can grab yours with 10% off using my code ZONE2SPEAK. Link and details are in the episode notes. Trust me, once you try it, you won't leave for a ride without it. Cyc Plus Smart Pump. Smart, simple, and ready for any adventure. Now, let's hear it for the episode. Today on Zone to Speak, I am joined by someone whose life story could fill a dozen podcasts and still leave you hungry for more. Our guest is Juliana Buhring, ultra-endurance cyclist, best-selling author, children's rights activist, and the first woman to set a Guinness World Record for fastest solo female circumnavigating of the globe by bicycle. With virtually no cycling background before taking on the world, Juliana set out from Naples in 2012 and rode over 18,000 miles across 19 countries in just 152 days, averaging roughly 125 miles a day on roads, plains, deserts, and mountains. Since then, she's gone on to place top 10 overall, not just women's category, in events like the Transcontinental Race and win the women's category, and placed fourth in the Trans Am race across the United States. But Juliana's story started long before she ever clipped into pedals. She grew up inside the controversial religious group Children of God, escaped in her early 20s, co-authored a best-selling memoir about that experience, and transformed grief and adversity into some of the most jaw-dropping cycling feats in history. Today, we will talk about what it takes to do the seemingly impossible, how she navigated life's sharpest turns to get here, how cycling became medicine for her mind and soul, and what she is chasing now that the world has watched her accomplish so much. Juliana, let's get into it. Welcome to Zone to Speak.
Thank you. That was quite an intro.
I am so happy you're here. I'm such a fan, such a awe of you, not just for the cycling, but your resilience and your zest for life from everything you have been through. And you share so much with the world with your book and your experiences. We are so lucky to have you as an inspiration.
Okay.
So, like I said in the intro, you had one of the most challenging childhoods imaginable. Growing up inside the Children of God cult, separated from your mother at age of 4 and enduring emotional and physical abuse. You and your sister, I believe, wrote about it in the Not Without My Sisters when you were in your 20s. How did that early life shape you, both in ways that challenged you and in ways that prepared you for a life of endurance?
That's a big topic. Well, let's see, I could go back to the beginning. Yeah, I was born and raised in the Children of God cult, which was a kind of apocalyptic. It was a weird mix, came out of the hippie era. Because at the time when a lot of, in the 60s, a lot of the most extreme cults and sects sort of came out of that time period when there was kind of the sense of revolution and that generation being discontent with society and the way the world was going and the Vietnam War and all of that. So they were prime targets for the kind of narcissists who become cult leaders and who look for susceptible prey, preaching, always a doctrine of let's break away from society, let's create utopia. Of course, they didn't join thinking they were joining a cult. They thought they were, joining a community of like-minded young people who wanted to change the world and wanted to do something positive. So it started with good intentions, but unfortunately the head was rotten, so that rot quickly seeped down into the whole body and the group at large. And so, yeah, my generation, we were born and raised in the group. We weren't members because we never joined of our own free will. We were born into it, so
Yeah.
it's quite a difference. We had no choice in the matter, and we didn't know the world outside of the group or any kind of a life before that. So we had no, um, I guess, another point of view or another um, how do you say it, a comparison, and we had nothing to compare
Right.
experiences of growing up in the group to anything else because we didn't know any better. So other people now, and obviously me too, looking back, I know it was extremely abusive, both physically, mentally, and emotionally on all levels for the entire generation of children who grew up in that group. um when you're in it and you don't know anything else, that's all you know. So we thought that we had the best life. We were told that we were special, that we were being raised to, when the world was going to end, we were going to take over and be the leaders of the new world. And so we had this sense of growing up of whatever we were suffering, it was for the greater good, um, and so, yeah, I grew up always, I guess, without parents because my parents were separated when I was quite young. And I was put into the child training camps, which they sent all the children to from the age of 5 on, where we were raised in a very militaristic environment. They thought we're the pure generation, so we should be trained into becoming, Jesus's little soldiers. So
Wow.
questioning doctrine or anything we saw wrong was possibly the worst sin you could do. So anyone who was a bit rebellious or who had a mind of their own or questioned, such like I did, we were the first to be set apart as examples, and they would try to break our spirits and beat us into submission and scare the other kids so that they wouldn't rebel.
Right. Do the
And
same. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if growing up with a naturally curious mind and the ability to see all the um everything that was wrong and all of the contradictions that I saw even within the doctrines themselves, because they would use the Bible to justify a lot of the harm that they did, and they called it love and God's love. But so many verses in the Bible they would use to justify one practice or belief, there were another, 5 to 10 that contradicted it. So I was very, from the time we're young, we were made to memorize large portions of the Bible. So I knew it quite well by heart. So I could beat them at their own game of arguing doctrine through the Bible instead of just, so they,
Wow.
um, but I guess that kept me from never really being a true believer in any sense, as in I was always um, singled out as the rebel um, that needed to be broken in, the wild horse. And because I had no parents to protect me, I got a lot of the very harsh physical disciplinary punishments. Which meant I grew up very independent minded, and also having to take care of myself, having to be very adaptable because I was trafficked from country to country across Asia and Africa. Before I was 25, I had already lived in over 20 countries.
Wow.
And
With the cult, they kept on moving you?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And at the time in the 80s and 90s, there were no controls. So,
Yeah.
they were shipping us children from country to country with random adults. And I had no actual, I mean, I guess I could say they were legal guardians, but it was just a random adult of the sect who would take me from one place to the next, with a paper that was signed by my mother saying whoever has this paper is Juliana's guardian. It didn't even have to have a name of anyone specific. So yeah, it was I had to be very quick thinking, adaptable, and learn to read people very well, and read people's intentions. So I could say probably now going into the world of ultra cycling down the line, I can see in hindsight how a lot of my childhood prepared me for um the challenges that these kind of feats of endurance require, both in your mind and in your physical, and the pain you experience, and pushing past the pain wall, because I had a very high pain tolerance but yeah, I had a high pain tolerance that I could endure here, which is where it starts. And if you can endure here, it's 70% in the mind, and then the body follows. So that mind and body connection, um, I came to play with and experiment with a lot in the ultra races, as life as it went on. But I could see now that I had quite already a good practice of it in
Yeah,
my life
yeah.
growing up.
Well, that is a lot to unpack, and thank you so much for opening up and sharing. I'm sorry you had to go through all that.
I'm not. Don't be. I think everything we pass through in life makes you stronger, and it builds your resilience. And resilience
Yeah,
is not something you're born with; it's something that you have to go build like a muscle.
yeah,
And so, whoever I am today is thanks to all of the struggles I passed throughout life. And so, at the time, of course, it hurt a lot, and it felt like it was never going to end. And sometimes I wished that I wasn't here anymore. Um, but today I can say that I'm not sorry, because it's made me who I am today, and I wouldn't change that. So
yeah, yeah. You're a very strong person, and when I think about if I were raised in such a closed environment, I don't know if I would have the strength to question and to think outside of that, you know? So I really admire people that have this curiosity and breakthrough and get out of this type of experiences. And then, okay, so you were able to escape and then you start your own life.
hmm
And then you decide to write around the world in
well,
2012.
that was kind of my reaction to another loss, an extreme heartbreak, actually.
Okay.
And being an extremist myself, I don't do anything by halves, so it's either nothing or all the way, like, to the most extreme possible.
And why cycling?
Yeah, good question. I actually don't know. It was a random choice. It was at the memorial of this man who I love very much. Um and we were sitting around the fireplace and talking about how death kind of brings to the front the 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 sorry, I'm stuttering. How death brings to the fore the transitory nature of our life, of our existence, and how it can be over from one second to the next, and we think we have this infinite amount of time ahead of us, but it could be tomorrow we're gone. And in that sense, have you done everything that you want to do? Do you have regrets? If you died tomorrow, would you be happy to say, I've really lived the life that I wanted to live? I've done the things I wanted to do, and I've left the people around me a bit better for my existence. Um, and with that thought, I think one of the women who was a friend was saying how, well, she had always wanted to cycle across Canada, and then she turned to me and she said, Would you want to cycle with me across Canada?" And I was like, I don't know how to cycle. And I was like, but no, not Canada. I've driven across it, and I've done it, so I wouldn't be very interested to cycle it. But then it got me thinking, if I was ever going to cycle across the country, like, which country would I actually want to cycle across? So it got me researching online and looking into, long cycle journeys. I kind of went down the rabbit hole and ended up with the great circumnavigation of Mark Beaumont and other men who had gone around the world. And I was like, yeah, I mean, why do a continent when you can do the world, right?
Yeah.
And then the little extremist bell in my mind was like, ding, 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 ding. Yep, epic. But then, like researching that, I realized that no woman had ever done it before, and I
Yeah.
was like, "It's 2011. How is that possible that no woman has ever done it?" And I quickly found out because looking for sponsors or looking for, just a bicycle, like money to do it. Everyone just looked at me like I was nuts, and they're like, "Who are you? And what have you done?"
Yeah.
Oh, you're not a
You don't even
cyclist,
know.
but you
Yeah.
want to cycle the world. Well, that's nice. Good for you.
Good
But
luck.
no one really believed. And then the other half were like, no, that's too dangerous. You can't go cycling around the world alone. There's a reason a woman has done it. And I was like, well, I'm gonna find out, aren't I? So, I ended up leaving with I think like 3,000 euros of savings, and just started going around the world. People started following me online on Facebook because it was a crazy story to follow this chick who was not really hadn't cycled longer than 8 months in her life, and was gonna now take on a world record. So it was I guess kind of a reality show entertainment for people who were following.
Yeah.
And everything went wrong that could possibly go wrong. I think by the time I got around the world, I didn't have a single original piece of my bike left except for the frame. Everything had been changed 'cause, I didn't even know what kind of bike I should take on such a journey. So of course I had the wrong kind of bike, the wrong kind of wheels, the wrong everything.
Wow.
Um,
Did you
and
change it as you
yeah,
started to
as
have
I went.
issues? Okay.
And as I went along, I kind of I learned by trial and error, and became a cyclist just by the act of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I mean, I guess probably I wouldn't have done it if I had been in a normal, sane frame of mind. But I was in such a deep depression, and that was my way of I needed to do something extreme to pull myself out of it. And um, cycling became a way of channeling all of that anguish and that pain and that emotional sorrow into something physical that I could drain that out of me, and I could go to sleep at night without bursting into tears every single day. Um so yeah, by the time I got halfway point, I was like, wow, all roads lead to home from this point on. Maybe I will make it around the world, because I actually didn't leave thinking I was going to make it around the world. And I was pretty okay with not even coming back. I was in that frame of mind. So
Wow.
I think when you've lost everything and you have nothing left to lose, you're actually capable of doing more than you would usually have imagined, because what
Absolutely.
do you have to lose? You might as well,
Yeah.
you know. And so yeah, and then I of course ran out of money pretty early on, and sent out a video to the people following me, going, "Thank you so much for all of your online encouragement and support of my crazy adventure, and I appreciate it." And I'm out of money now. I don't actually think I have money enough for a ticket home, but I'm gonna have to stop. And like just by the next day, there was already 1,000 euros more in my account, and people
Wow.
just were following, just started sending little donations, 50 euro, 100 euro, and it just accumulated to keep me on the road. And I never actually had to ask for help, because people just wanted to help me. And a lot of them were actually ex-kids who had also grown up in the cult, and who helped put me up on the way, and and they were all really rooting for me and sending me donations, like, you have to finish for all of us. And became like
Oh,
this force behind the whole journey. And 10% of all the money came into my account, I was sending to my organization that was helping ex-kids get set up after they leave these extremist groups. So it
beautiful.
was also kind of a fundraiser for that. And yeah, by the time I came back, it was kind of surreal. It was also a bit of a downer, because you get to this place where you just eat, sleep, and ride for that length of time, and you kind of can forget about the rest of the world even existing.
Yeah.
Very, it's very life becomes kind of channeled and funneled down to its basics, and then when you stop, suddenly the whole world comes rushing in again, and then you have to worry about your rent, and then you have to worry about the bills, and you have to worry, get a job and all that day-to-day stuff. It
Yeah.
was actually quite nice to have that simplicity of not having to worry about anything, pedaling your bicycle. But that journey also really served to restore my faith in humanity, which I had very little left of. and just the kindness, experiencing the kindness of strangers and the goodness of most people. You know, we see so much bad news in the world that we think the whole world is just getting darker and uglier and more hatred everywhere you look. But if you meet people on a human level, face to face, they're quite different, and you actually see that there's more goodness than not in people. And so to keep the faith for that was, I mean, that journey definitely highlighted that for me, and all subsequent journeys have done the same.
That's beautiful. I mean, you just went head in, but like you said, you need it, right? I think there's even a saying, be very afraid of a man who has nothing to lose. So I
Yeah.
guess that pushed you, and I'm glad people didn't, support you. I was going to say didn't let you stop, but they support you to keep going.
Didn't
And
let me stop.
how beautiful that you also like, throughout this whole journey, you kept on supporting those kids that are, to get reestablished in society and get their lives back together. Um, and so this is like so transformational, right? Like psychologically, emotionally, physically. You're averaging around like over 100 miles a day. So that's what, like, I don't know, 150 kilometers about. I mean,
What's the
there's heat,
average of 200 kilometers a day?
200 kilometers. Wow. And
Which
then
at the
there's,
time for me was a huge feat because I'd never cycled in my life. So not
yeah,
being able to rest over, period of 5 months, 200 a day every day was for me a huge, extraordinary feat of endurance. But then
it is
as I
an
got into the
extraordinary
world of
of
ultra
endurance.
racing,
Yeah.
now looking back, I'm like, oh, it wasn't that much.
It is
you
a
know?
lot. I was going to say, even for someone who is doing long distance, I think doing 200K for
Yeah.
what? I mean, a lot of, you did it
I
in
was
152 days. That's a lot to keep going. An ultra, yeah, maybe people can do 400, 500 a day, but they are done in 2 days.
yeah.
To
Yeah.
keep up
It's a
for 152 days, 200 kilometers, it's a lot. And you didn't have any cycling experience.
no, none.
What was
But
the hardest moments that you remember from these rides or unexpected moments? And I'm not talking about bad experience, it can be, but also you're saying that you had all this great experience meeting goodness on the road as well.
well, oftentimes my highs came after a low, which is how it is often in life, and you have to experience extremes to appreciate the good, you have to have the bad.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes my best experiences came after like I hit a really, really low point, or for example, a dangerous point, like when I was stuck in New Zealand up in the mountains and was at called Desert Road. I had got lost. I had no navigation, working navigation. I couldn't find anywhere with maps, and had no food, no water, and I was basically doing a long climb for about 150 kilometers that day, and got to the top, and the winds were so strong, I couldn't ride anymore. So I was walking with the bike, and the wind was actually lifting the bike up in the air. That's how strong it was. And I didn't have the correct like clothes or kit for such because the temperature dropped after the sunset, and it was up on a mountain plateau. So, and I had no idea how far it was to the next town, and I started to get hypothermia. Um, and then I was rescued by this little old couple in a camper van that had pulled over to the side of the road for dinner, and I was banging on their windows, help. And they're like, what are you doing out here in this weather and this wind? I was like, I
Just riding my bike around the
don't.
world.
Yeah, that's what I told them. I'm like, riding my bike, brother. They were like, you're nuts. You're crazy. I'm like, yeah, probably. But they were so nice. They were going to continue for another 200 kilometers in the opposite direction. But they actually just stopped there for the night and parked there so I could sleep. They gave me some hot tea. Then they gave me some whiskey. And they gave me
That will warm
some
you up.
sausages. Oh, that did warm me. She tried to give me the tea, and he's like, no, get some
Or
whiskey in her. And then they put me in their little bunk above the driver's seat and let me sleep, and then woke me up with at 5 a.m. with some coffee and some toast. So that was, the
wow.
kindness of strangers that I experienced who literally saved my life on, there was a couple of occasions, and I made like their dinner talk, like their tall tale to tell it at family dinners for
Yes.
till the end. They
Yes.
stayed. It was on the socials. We kept up with each other until they passed away. So um, yeah,
Beautiful, beautiful. It's just so refreshing, like you said, in such a cruel world that we live right now, to encounter acts of kindness.
yeah,
And beyond the record, you didn't slow down. You entered Transcontinental, you did a Trans Am, and all like placing really high, first woman, fourth overall, ninth overall. What
yeah.
draws you to unsupported ultra distance format, especially when most people would consider your first achievement the pinnacle? Like, you just fell in love and you wanted to keep doing it?
It was Mike Hull's fault. He was at the time he was the fastest man to go around the world. So we met up over beers and
Okay.
he was like, I'm setting up this unsupported bike ultra bike race across Europe. And that was the first of its kind. Now I mean there's hundreds of,
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
the Transcontinental was the first. And so he pushed me to sign up going, we need women to do this. There's no women ultra cyclists out there. And I was like, I'm not a racer. I'm not even barely a cyclist. I haven't even cycled more than a year in my life. And he was like, no, it's just like going on an adventure. You've already got around the world. Europe will be nothing.
You're a
So
pro now.
so he got me on the starting line, and I was the only woman at the time. So I guess I was the OG of these ultra races as far as women racing goes. And I had no idea what to expect, and no experience. And so that was kind of just like the first race I cut my teeth on and got addicted to it after that. And that was when I started to realize that I could push myself much further than I had before. So I was doing average of 300 kilometers a day instead of 200. And I was like, wow.
Wow.
And then I reached 400 and I was like, I had no idea I could do that. And then I got into that whole like, how far can I go? And it got to the point where, so by the time I got to the next year, I'm on the Trans Am. I mean, that was another race where everything went wrong. On the second day, I had a crash. I rode the whole race on a broken rib,
My
and then
goodness.
my seat post broke. So I was riding on a broken seat post for half the race, which killed my knees
Wow.
because the
Oh
seat
my
post was all the
goodness.
way
Yeah.
down. And that's by the time I got to the end, I was pedaling for 36 hours nonstop, and I had this horrible pinched nerve running from my knee up to my back, up my spine, because I've been sitting in this bad position, and I've been taking ibuprofen to keep the swelling in my knees down, and my knees were like balloons, and I was racing in fifth and fourth with another guy, Jesse, and we had kind of a mutual agreement that I was going to let him take fourth and I would take fifth. Like I had nothing left to prove. I was like, I didn't even think I would make it this far, and I'm like sitting up in the front and riding on like everything possibly wrong with me, and I was so done by that point. I was so tired. And I had nothing left in the tank. And Mike sent a message because he won the race already. So he was already there at the finish line waiting. And he was
Oh,
like, let some air out of your tires. You're gonna thank me because the last 20 miles were just cobblestone.
okay.
I was like, and I was started crying because I was like, I can't endure any more of this pain. It hurts so bad. I was pedaling with one leg, and I was like, how am I gonna make that finish line? Uh, and then
Wow.
Jesse, who was near me, he was like, I'm gonna sprint to the end. I got my family waiting for me, and I was like, yeah, you go, man. I'll
Bye.
see. I'll see you
Yeah.
at the end. And then he went and like disappeared over the horizon, and then that was just when something kicked in my brain. I just like I couldn't let it go. I was like, I don't know what happened. It was like I had this complete disconnect between mind and body
Wow.
experience where the brain just slammed over the control panel and just like turned off the sound that my body was screaming beep beep stop, and it just turned off the sound, and I just went and just charged, and suddenly I felt nothing. I felt no pain. I felt light as a feather, and I got this amazing kick of adrenaline like the second wind, and
Wow.
started chasing him down, and he turned and he saw me, and he was like, what?
What
because he knew
happened?
I was like riding on one leg, and then so he picked up the pace, and I picked up the pace, and like we literally like raced the last 20 miles to the end, and rolled into the finish line together, tied the fourth place. And that's really when I got into that whole idea of mind over matter, and that, when you think you've got nothing left in the tank, there's always
There is
20%
always,
you
yeah.
have to reach for it. And if you can break through that wall, you can go further than you thought. But then, having learned that the hard way, I also learned that yes, you can override the machine, and you can push it to breaking point. But then once you've broken the machine, you've broken the machine, so there's that
Yeah.
balance that ultra racers have to sometimes learn the hard way. And if you don't do too much damage to yourself before it's too late. And unfortunately I did, because I had been riding so long on those swollen knees. I completely destroyed them. So when I went back for the transcontinental race, the year after that, I think it was day two, I was almost at the 1,000 kilometer mark, and then the knees just completely collapsed, like from one second to the next. I couldn't even put
Wow, a
any
year
pressure.
later.
Yeah. They just completely went. So, it's one of these things where, the movie Into the Blue, where there's the
No.
deep sea divers, and um they competitively go down to see how deep they can dive down. And I think at the ending is the main protagonist basically goes down to his death. He's gone too far. He knows he can't come back,
Yeah.
but he goes down smiling. And that's when you go past that point where you get that high, but then you don't know when to stop, and that's when it becomes dangerous.
Yeah.
So, but going then into that, I guess I learned the hard way certain things, but I also learned that we are capable of pushing our limits so much further than we think. Like, we don't even try for it, because I guess we stop at that pain threshold. Most people stop when your mind tells you stop. And the human nature is to look for the comfortable, not the uncomfortable, right? We
Yeah.
don't want to be inconvenienced. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to feel pain, but suffering is a necessary part of growth, and a necessary part of the human condition, and how you grow physically and mentally and spiritually. And so then I think the last race that I did was the race around Oman. And that's when I was like, interestingly, I knew my knees were destroyed, and I knew I couldn't do further than in like a 2-3 day race, and they would collapse. So I looked for a race that I could, I wanted to see what was my limit as far as how long I could sit on that bike and ride without stopping. And that for me was a race against myself. It was not racing anybody else. I just wanted to see if I could do 1,000 kilometers nonstop in under 48 hours.
Did you?
And I did 1,080 in 49 hours, and arrived third overall, first woman. And they were like, "Oh, you're in third on the podium." I'm like, "I am what?" I didn't even know. I wasn't following the race. I was just riding my own race. And there's another thing. Like, I think sometimes when it gets into that competitive mode, you actually are your own worst enemy, because your mind plays tricks against you, and you feel that pressure that you need to be the best, or you need to be in the top, whatever, and everyone's watching. But if you ride just for the joy of it, and you pushing yourself because you're curious for your own reason and not for any other purpose or anybody else, uh, you actually end up being able to do more or go further than you would probably otherwise when you get inside your own head.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. And you also have spoken about not waiting for the perfect time to pursue something. This idea you have put into practice in incredible ways. And you have
Well, I
lived
think people look for, like, they say, oh, they have to have all the right conditions, they have the right amount of training, they have the right this, right that. It's
equipment,
just an
time,
excuse. It's
weather.
just an
Yeah.
excuse to buy time, to put off doing what you say you're going to do. And the longer you put it off, actually, the harder it is to do it. So it's better to feel underprepared, but just go for it, because you're never going to be prepared. No matter what you do, you're never going to be completely prepared. Because no matter what happens, you think you've got all bases covered and you've got everything you're going to need. Something will always happen to blow that up. So you just have to be, yeah, adaptable, flexible, and just be ready for everything. Expect it all.
Yeah, I think flexibility and adaptability are huge characters. What do you say? Personality traits for someone to, survival in any and thrive, not just survive,
Anything.
but thrive in
Yeah.
anything. Life, sports, but also this thing of like waiting for something to be perfect. Nothing ever is going to be perfect. There's never going to be the perfect timing. Just do it.
Just life is not that way. You're
Yeah,
never
no,
gonna get
no,
it
no,
perfect.
no. The stars are not going to align, and if they do, some curveball is coming.
Some curveball, yeah, it's always.
Yeah. So you have lived extraordinary experiences, and you have written about them in ways that resonate, from your memoir to various writings and reflections over the years. How has storytelling been part of your process? Does writing help you make sense of the ride as much as the ride itself does?
Yeah, I suppose it does help to digest it afterwards. Yes, because when you have so many peak experiences, um, it's hard. It takes time to assimilate whatever lessons you've learned out of them. It's always looking back that you realize, and down the road, you can always see how it's transforming you while you're in the process of it. You're still in the cocoon. So as you go and you say, oh, that led to that and that led to that, and life kind of keeps, it's like a wheel, it keeps taking you around and around, and you keep going forward into another experience that brings you to another and to another, and also then you grow, you become stronger, you become more resilient, you become more adaptable, you I suppose the greater the struggle, or the greater the challenge that you take on or that you face and that you overcome, the less, the little things that come at you don't bother you as much. You kind of, you see the world and you see life differently. It's you don't sweat the small stuff anymore. It doesn't, the things that you see other people just going crazy about and falling apart over, you're just, for you, it's really nobody, it's just another day.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's your whole perspective changes. And I'd say that in life in general. So ultra cycling and the ultra races, also given me a lot of tools in my everyday life in general, and how I see things and how I face things, and also how I confront other challenges, not just on a bicycle.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that on a not so epic way. I haven't done those epic, crazy records like you, but
Oh
yeah,
no, but everyone has their own set of challenges to
exactly,
face in
right?
life.
Yeah,
It's unique to each individual, isn't it? And you have your
yeah,
own set of challenges that you're going to have to face and deal with. And if you can do that, you can move on to the next level. If not, you get stuck in that loop and you have to keep repeating the same thing over and over.
yeah. Many people see your life as epic adventure, but you have also described in many as a way of to make sense of loss, to heal, and to discover strength that you didn't even know you had. How do you think those experiences, the pain and the search for purpose, influence who you became as an endurance athlete and as a human?
Wow, that's a big question. Let me think. I don't know so much if that I looked for those challenges or looked for the endurance cycling as a way to find purpose, at least not consciously. I think that it was maybe a subconscious approach to that, which then determined, how I began to view everything in life, and how I changed as a person. So I think a lot of the times life has just thrown hard blows my way, and then I have had to deal with them as they come. And you don't always choose what happens to you in life, and that many times we don't have a choice which direction it's going to go, but we always have a choice in how we're going to face it, or how we're going to deal with it, or how we're going to react. So I think that it was more that initially it was just me reacting to what was happening to me that I didn't necessarily have control over.
Yeah,
Um, and then maybe I took that and turned it into something positive and put that energy or those lessons into something like sport, or as life goes on, it's always a different challenges. And I guess the more challenges that I've taken on or faced, the more I'm curious to know what else I'm capable of, or what other challenges, and what else I can learn about myself, and continue to grow as an individual, or as a human.
beautiful. Yeah. And you inspire so many, myself included.
That's kind. I don't do it for that reason.
It's a bonus.
It's a big bonus
Um,
for me. I'm honored if it does help anyone in any way.
absolutely does. I mean, just talking to you right now, I want to ride around the world.
Go for it. Listen, I'm not an extraordinary anything, right? I'm just an ordinary person. So I think everybody has that element in them, and they can do something extraordinary. They just have to take the challenge, just have to step up, or just have to try, do something new outside of your comfort zone that you didn't think you were capable of, and you might surprise yourself, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah. And you were saying before when you did, Transcontinental and other races, there weren't many women in ultras, and things have changed a lot in this last decade or so. There's so many more women, but I think there's still so much
Yes.
more to be done. What challenges or opportunities have you noticed for women in cycling, ultra cycling, that has, you know, that landscape changed since you started?
Well, I mean, so first off, just for me, it was almost impossible to ever find sponsorship, or any interest whatsoever, because there were no women in the game, and they didn't think that women could compete on that level as the men. But in fact, it's now been proven the opposite, that we are very adapted. Our bodies are very adapted to ultra sport as much as the men. That we have a very high tolerance to pain in general. Women have a higher tolerance to pain, I believe, than men, probably due to our bodies being adapted to it for childbirth and all the rest. And we're very good at enduring mentally, but also we have less of this need to compete that the men do. So like, there's a much lower dropout rate of women in these sports than the men, because the women, if something goes wrong, they'll just like work through it, and their goal is not to compete with everyone else. Their goal is to prove to themselves they can do it, and to get to the end, and they do, and they are consistent. Whereas the men, is more of an ego trip, and if they see they're not going to get into the top 10 or the top 15 or whatever, they find an excuse to drop out at the first little excuse, like, oh, bad weather, or oh, I have a tummy ache, but
Yeah, I'm not going to be
they're
on
much
top
more
10. I'm not
likely.
going to
Yeah,
continue.
so they're like, oh, then what's the point? I mean, whereas for women, we're much more consistently like, we just want to finish it. And with that mindset, we actually are able to go much, much longer and stronger than we think. So we underestimate ourselves a lot in that. And then I guess when I was first in the first races, there was a lot of, because I had only been cycling for 2, 3 years when I was in the top pack of the men, and they were like, "So we've all been cycling our whole lives, and you have been cycling for 2 years. How are you pushing the front?" And so there was all the accusations, oh, it's not possible that a woman can do that, so she must be cheating somehow. She must be,
Goodness.
I don't know, she must have assistants, or
Yeah,
she
it's
must
not
have
them, it's you, of
must be
course.
drugged. But yeah, exactly. So, but now, since me, there's been so many women who have, taken podiums in these, not just in cycling, also in ultra running, all the ultra sports, So women are now proving that they are in fact capable of it. So, and I think since then the interest has improved. So women are more able to find sponsors, to find interest around them, to get more support and more eyes on them, more people watching them. So I think that the sport has changed a lot in that way, and it is helping more women to participate, because we often don't have a lot of time on our hands for training, for all of that. So just having just the smallest amount of help along the way makes a difference. So it's definitely, the snowball is picking up, and it always takes one little pebble to get it rolling, and then it grows. So I'm watching with great joy and pride how it's growing and how many women now are on the road. Like when I first started training, I was the only woman riding around in the roads here in Italy. You know, it was very a masculine driven sort of sport. And the big packs of them passed me and they'd all be looking at me like, whoa, what is she like I didn't belong there.
Oh,
Um and now there's so many women all like cycling just, for the joy of it alone on the bikes, like going on down my old, my old turf. It's so cool to see it for me now, like just to see how much it has changed and grown. So I think it's wonderful. I think obviously we have a long way to go, but yeah, we're making big leaps.
yes, yes. I'm also very happy to see this positive change and this wave growing, 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 and many more women getting curious, getting involved, and being supported not just by brands but also by the community.
Yeah, by communities. And it's that the more that they see it can be done, the more they're gonna try to do it, right? So it's that, it always takes that first step of just someone showing it can be done, and then, it was like, oh, so we can do it. Oh, let's do it, so then there's no excuse why they shouldn't. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for paving the way.
I felt I didn't think of it at the time, but
I know you didn't. It was
so happy.
it just happened, yeah, and that's the beauty of it. And your life has taken so many turns. You are not done chasing horizons, I think.
Well, definitely not done chasing challenges.
Yeah, what's capturing your curiosity and excitement right now? Are you up for any new challenges?
Y- yes, but they're not necessarily in the realm of cycling. There's other challenges.
Yeah.
So actually, every year I try and do a new challenge and take on a completely different, learn something completely different, and do something completely new to stretch myself further. But I don't like to say what I'm gonna do until I'm doing it because I think it also jinxes what you're gonna do. So I never like, oh, I don't talk. I just do the walk and that's it. And then when I've done it, you can talk about it. Yeah. But I've
Okay.
just finished my third book, so that's gonna be all about the ultra cycling adventures and loads of stories and the lessons I learned from it and being, the first woman to experiment on myself. So it's just all the crazy stuff that went down on the way. So hopefully it's going to be published soon.
Awesome. Okay, we'll be on the lookout for that, and keep me updated. I'll definitely share on the podcast and our social media channels
Thank you.
all about it. Yeah, I'll be on the lookout for sure. I want to read it. And do you still ride your bike for fun?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I still do. I try and cycle a new country every year. So
Nice.
I still love going long distances. I'd go as far as I possibly can. And yeah, no, the bicycle will always be a big part of my life, and I'll never stop cycling, that's for sure.
And from all of these adventures, do you have any favorite place, any favorite country to ride?
Wow, that's hard.
Yeah.
There's so many favorites. The world is so diverse, and I like
Yeah.
different places for different reasons. So it can be like one country is for the food. It's just food is very important to cyclists. So
Yeah.
um, some countries I was crazy just because the food was cheap and so good. Like countries going through Asia. For the people, I had the best experience in Turkey.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but diversity of terrain, I love America. I've gone across America 3 times now, and
Wow.
it's got such an incredible diversity of terrain, of people, of culture, of
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, actually, yeah. It's a pity that it's a country so divided now when they have so much beauty in their country. There's
It's really sad what's happening.
it's sad, and I hope for their sake that they can find their commonalities, because I mean I found so many good people going across the US. I mean, even in the most unlikely places, like in the mountains of Kentucky, I was helped when my bike broke by a group of rednecks, and they were proudly said they were rednecks, that they used that word on themselves.
Okay.
And they were like, yeah, hillbilly ingenuity, and they saved my race. So when my
They
chain broke,
saved. Okay, okay. I thought
they
they broke.
saved my
Okay, they
race.
saved. Wow, nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
They're
so
good
like
people. Different
they're the people
cultures.
that if you meet them on their face to face on the human level. So it's this sad pack mentality, and it's the mentality that I saw growing up in the cult, where you get a group of people together and you isolate them, isolate information, and feed them with fear and ignorance is the greatest weapon of truth,
Destruction. Yeah,
and it's the way to control people en masse. So sadly, that seems to be happening again, and I see so many similarities between the cult where I grew up and so many parts of society today in so many places, where information is being funneled only in a little echo chamber, and people are it's just generating this bubble of hatred and fear of other, and that's what's causing so much of this rift everywhere we look.
yeah. It's sad. It's scary, and I really don't know what's gonna take to turn this around. So many countries now are just fearful
Yeah.
for.
It feels like in history the pendulum tends to swing between big extremes. So where
Yeah,
it's swinging towards a great uh progress that happens too quickly, then people's reaction is to go the opposite direction to try and return to a sense of normality or safety in what they knew. And you can never go completely back. So, to get to a happier medium, it has to swing quite extremely before it can, balance a bit. So I'm hoping that we will find a balance in future. Or maybe this is what we need to see what we don't want in order to understand what we do want.
yeah.
So
I also believe in that. I think this is a time of transformation, and I think there's hope and light at the end of the tunnel. It's it's just a
we
means.
have to be a part of it. We can't back away and be like, it's too much. I can't take it, and I don't want to see anything. I don't want to hear anything. I just want to forget that this is all happening. It's so easy to go into ourselves and retreat instead of stepping out of our way to help someone else, or to be kind, or to be you know to be the light in a dark place, and that takes energy, and that's a challenge in itself. But maybe that's the challenge we need to step up to now.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Beautifully said. And it, like you went through so much, and then from darkness to triumph, and look where you are now. You found, you have so much peace and joy, and you continue to challenge yourself and bring so much beauty to the world. And I can't wait to see what's in that book, all the lessons as well that you're sharing. And I want to, thank you so much for being here on the podcast. I am in total awe in front of this legend. Uh,
I'm very
you're very
honored.
humble, but you are a legend to me, anyways, and to many. I know too many.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It was my honor that you hit me up for a chat. You want to
Words
come, if you
fail
want to
me
come
now.
cycling in Italy at any point, you know where to
Ooh,
come.
okay. Well, I'm
I
gonna hit you
challenge you to a
offline.
ride on the coast.
Let's do it. I'm gonna call you on that.
Yeah, do. I'm not joking. I'm not
It's on
saying that.
record.
Yes, it's on record. We all heard it.
Yes.
Got
Thank
witnesses.
you.
Nice to talk to you.
And that's all for today's episode. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in. Your support means everything. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends.